Hey, it's Josh Harris with REI Black Book, and in today's video, I sit down with Dan Barrett to talk about why right now is the best time to start marketing online for real estate investors. Hey, Josh Harris with the REI Black Book, and today I got a special interview for you. I sat down with Dan Barrett from AdWords Nerds, and Dan and his team have been working with real estate investors for years. And what they do is they help real estate investors find motivated sellers online through Google pay-per-click, so Google AdWords, and also SEO. They do a little bit of Facebook ads as well, but they've been working with investors, specifically just investors, for years. And so Dan and his team really have their finger on the pulse on what is working well today to find motivated sellers online. And we sit down to talk about why right now is the perfect time to really start focusing online, right? Think about your own behavior. Whenever you need to learn something or do some research, you go online, you typically go to Google or maybe you go to Bing and you type in a question, right? And a bunch of links pop up. Dan and his team help real estate investors show up when somebody goes and searches sell my house fast in XYZ market, or home buying companies in St. Louis, or how do I sell my house fast in my local market, right? So these are some of the best leads that you can generate because these people already know that they have a problem. And there's a lot of different ways to market and find motivated sellers. And this is one of the best, but it's not the only. And we also talk about the importance of having something that Dan calls a marketing stack, which basically means not relying on one source of leads. And so you should have some direct mail. You should have, pay-per-click or some type of SEO, some type of online presence. And if you're just getting started, it sounds a little more scary than it is. And Dan also talks about what type of investor should work with an agency and what type of investor would probably be better off actually doing this on their own. And Dan also has a couple resources where you can learn how to do it. So every week we post videos just like this, and we talk all things marketing for real estate investors. So new leads and sales is really the lifeblood of any business, especially in real estate. And so we shoot videos every week, publish videos every week to show you how to generate more leads and build a more streamlined business. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified every time we release a new video. So with that said, let's get into the interview. All right. Hey, welcome everybody to today's interview. Super excited about this one. Dan is one of my favorite guys to talk to in the industry because he is, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the call, Dan, I really do mean it. He is, he's really got his finger on the pulse as far as what's working in real estate investing specifically, and more specifically, how to find motivated sellers online. So we're going to get into this in detail. We're going to ask Dan, why he thinks online marketing is so important for real estate investors. But before I do that, I just want to introduce Dan. So Dan Barrett is the head nerd, which I think means CEO, and founder of AdWords Nerds, which is a marketing agency that specifically works with real estate investors. And what they do is they help real estate investors find motivated seller leads online. And that's all they do. And that's why I love talking to Dan, because they're very focused, hyper-focused on one thing for one market, which is real estate investors. And that's what they do every single day. So, I can't think of anybody else better to talk to about online marketing than Dan. And so, Dan, we brought you in, I guess this was like 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years ago now, to do a couple workshops for us in 2019. So Dan came in and did a full workshop on SEO, which is search engine optimization, and also then did a full workshop on pay-per-click or Google ads for finding motivated seller leads online. And so that was, 2 years ago now. And so we wanted to bring you back on just to see kind of what's changed because, things change so fast online. And so we wanted to bring you on and just, get an update on, how real estate investors can be successful marketing online. And
thanks. Well, thanks for having me on, man. That's awesome. Very, very excited to talk to the REI Black Book folks pretty much anytime. And I will say, it's funny. We were talking before we jumped on the call, right? Where you were saying, I was like, well, the seminars that I did for the REI Black Book folks, that was like 2 years ago, which is like 10 years ago in online time, right? Or like in real world time or whatever. And it really has been those 2 years between then and now, in a lot of ways, had more change and more rapid change than like the 5 years before, right? We saw not only did 2020 have COVID-19 happen, which in itself would have been enough to make that period incredibly tumultuous and volatile, right? But we're in the middle of maybe one of the weirdest housing markets I've ever seen, right? It's like incredibly high demand, incredibly tight supply. It's like the price of lumber from China is like going all over the place. Right. So there's just all these structural things that are happening. You have this kind of inflation narrative with the Federal Reserve and what are people going to do there. You had the sort of knock to the economy, but the sort of uninterrupted rise of the stock market, which is kind of, there's just all these structural things that are happening. And then inside real estate investing specifically, you saw a massive influx, just this really sort of exponentially increasing curve of new investors entering the marketplace, right? Attracted by high housing prices, attracted by the idea of working for themselves because the economy was sort of all over the place. It just all these factors kind of coming together. And then at the same time, you had the sort of platforms that we typically use, you have Facebook, you got Google, Microsoft ads, whatever it is, also going through massive changes. The ACLU had a lawsuit with Facebook that they settled out of court, where Facebook heavily restricted the types of targeting that real estate investors could use. Then Google followed suit a year later, probably trying to get ahead of their own version of that legislation. You have literally, I always make this joke, but it's like the only bipartisan issue that both Democrats and Republicans agree with is that everybody hates big tech companies. And so there's this like pressure right now, like even as we record this, right? Changes happening in federal court as a variety of different states' attorneys general bring suits against Facebook, trying to break up their ownership of Instagram and WhatsApp. And you just all this stuff happening at the exact same time.
Well, and to throw on even more on top of that, not only big tech, you also have in real estate investing, specifically, you've got all these regulations that are coming down from government and also from carriers when it comes to, outbound marketing practices like cold calling and cold texting. So there's a lot of things happening right now in the real estate space that are influencing the way that real estate investors market. And so, again, I mean, one of the things that I love, like, sometimes we hopped on a call a couple of weeks ago just because I had a couple of questions about pay-per-click and, what landing pages were working better for you. And you guys do all kinds of split tests. And so, again, like, I think Dan's easily the foremost expert in this type of stuff for this industry because it's all they do all day. And so, one of the questions I have for you, to start off is, like, why should an investor even think about online marketing in the first place when you've got all of these different types of channels? Like, you could just go buy a list and, send out a bunch of cold text blasts, which, that's the days are numbered on that. I mean, people are getting sued left and right every single day for tens of thousands of dollars because it's not compliant.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I just had Damon from REI Black Book on my podcast recently to talk about that because I didn't really understand the whole SMS marketing thing. And he really dropped this like massive knowledge bomb on me about how that's changing everything. So that's fascinating too. And I get it because, if you're already sold on online marketing, you're a computer savvy person, that's what you love. I don't really have to convince you of anything, right? To go into online marketing. And so really I'm talking, when people say, well, why should I bother? Or why should I make this a part of my marketing stack, if you will? generally who I'm talking to are people who are, maybe you're not super technical, right? Like you don't have an SEO background or whatever, and it's not something you're super comfortable with. So when I'm talking to those people, and I mentioned, by the way, all this change that's happening, all this volatility, all this stuff that's different, right? I completely understand why the idea of getting into online marketing now seems completely overwhelming, and it seems super difficult. It seems like it's going to be expensive, and I totally get it, right? So here's what I'll typically say to those people, right? First of all, just to take the pressure off, you don't have to do anything, right? Yep. Nobody has to go online, right? You can absolutely make it work with direct mail, other stuff. REI Black Book has these incredible kind of playbook resources with a whole bunch of different types of marketing. So I'm a firm believer that, different strokes for different folks. You can find a marketing stack that works for you. But if you're curious about online marketing, you're wondering if it's a good fit, one of the things I would point out is it is during times like these when fortunes are made, just in general, right? If you look at like the history of the stock market, you look at the history of basically any industry you could pull out, right? You look at people who are big online right now. Generally, they made the most progress during the periods where the path forward was a little unsure. Because there's, I don't know if this is a Charlie Munger quote. I always misattribute this. But one of my favorite quotes is, if it sounds like a good idea, it's too late. So if someone comes to you and they say, hey, I've got the absolute best practice. It's a step-by-step checklist of everything you got to do, exactly what kind of page, exactly what kind of ad, exactly what kind of this, exactly what kind of that. Here it is. The problem with that is if you have it, then so does everyone else, right? And you get an advantage in your market, in your business, in your industry, and whatever. You get an advantage by having knowledge that other people don't. It's the same in the stock market, right? Like if everybody knows this is a great stock, the price of that stock goes up. The benefit to owning it is priced into it. You make money in the stock market by buying a stock that's good when other people don't know that yet, right? And so I always look at times of uncertainty, and I'm going to be clear with your audience, right? This is a time of uncertainty in the sense that real estate investing is so competitive, and who knows what's going to happen with the stock market, and who knows, the Delta variant of COVID, and how is that going to affect things? And what's the Biden administration going to do in terms of regulation? I have no idea. No one has any idea. Anybody that says that they know is talking out of both sides of their mouth or whatever. But it's exactly during times like that where you can get an advantage over your competition by understanding and working on your own marketing in a way that they just aren't, right? So, that said, all that said, just kind of as a general kind of philosophical side, the core premise of why online marketing is important for real estate investors is exactly the same today as it was 10 years ago, which is if you look at the population, like the demographics of who are selling homes, right? So just imagine in your head who's selling their homes right now, who's going to be selling their homes 5 years from now, who's going to be selling their homes 10 years ago from now. I can just ask you, are those people, those sellers, more likely or less likely to start and finish that process online today, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And the answer is, they're much more likely to do it online, right?
For sure. I mean, I think that, for anybody who's listening to this, think about your own behavior, when you want to figure something out, anything, right? Whether it's a new pair of shoes or you want to learn how to, garden, you don't go to your mailbox and see who sent you mail that day, right? You go to Google and you type in how to garden, how to plant tomatoes, right? How to sell my house. People type in weird things into Google, how to sell my house that I just inherited, right? And what ends up happening is a list of websites come up, right? And so what Dan helps investors do is make sure that your website comes up. And there's one of two ways that typically happens. Number one is through paid. So those are Google ads, Bing ads, what we call pay-per-click ads. The other one is organic search. And these are the ones that show up underneath those paid ads. And so, you're at a massive advantage if you're one of the first people that not even just show up in search, but just one of the first people that they interact with. And, as Dan said, this is a great strategy to add to your, as you referred to, marketing stack. Mm-hmm. Meaning we're not saying direct mail is a bad idea. We're not saying bandit signs are a bad idea. We're saying that imagine if somebody gets your direct mail piece in the mail, then they see an ad on Facebook from you. And then when they go and search either your company name, which they're going to do, or how to sell their house fast, and you also show up there, like the amount of credibility and authority that you're building in your market goes through the roof. And then the opportunity for you to close more deals because of that increases as well.
I'm super glad that you mentioned credibility, right? Because there is a fundamental difference in the relationship between you and the seller when they sought you out first.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like when you say, like, if you have a problem and you're looking for advice, who are you more likely to listen to? Like the person that you knew that might have good advice for you and you sought them out and you asked them for advice, or someone who came up to you on the street and said, hey, you're on a list of people that are looking for advice and I've got some advice for you, right? It's
right.
Like, okay. Generally it's like, you're going to kind of wave that person off, right? So the credibility level is profoundly different. It's a different relationship, right? And the other thing that I would point out, right, that I think is we understand this now, but I don't even think we have hit the saturation point for this dynamic at all, which is just the extent that we are training ourselves to look online to solve any problem. So like this morning, literally this morning, my son is 6, right? And, we woke up early. So they wake up at like 5:30 and I'll typically wake up with them. So we're milling around downstairs and it's a little too early to make breakfast or whatever. And I've got a cup of coffee and I'm like, maybe we should take a walk around the neighborhood. It might be nice. Morning walk around the neighborhood. And I said, I'm saying this out loud. I said, I wonder what the weather is like. So I walked out my front door to see what the weather is like. My son asked Alexa what the weather is, right? We are equidistant to the door, right? And it's like, it made me realize he has been trained to ask the internet. He doesn't even know that's what that is. To him, the information is just everywhere and he can tap into it at any time. And he doesn't know that the internet even exists. It's just the way everything is. So we are really training ourselves that the way you solve problems is not by asking friends. It's not by tapping into your social network. It's by asking an engine that will provide you with the information, whether that's Google or whether that's, Amazon or whatever. Now, I'm not even saying that's good or bad. I think, there might be drawbacks to that, right?
It just is.
It just is.
So
I was walking down the street and I walked by a movie theater and I was like, I want to know when the Black Widow movie comes out. And I could go into the movie theater, but I just asked my phone instead.
Yeah, but who would do that, right?
I know. Yeah, exactly. I might have to interact with an actual human being. And I forbid.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So it's wild.
Yeah. So knowing that that's where everything is, not even where it's going, that's where everything is. And it has been that way for a long time. What would you tell someone or what advice would you give, to an investor who's looking to get into, online marketing in general, because there's so many different things you can do. There's SEO, there's which is search engine optimization. There's pay-per-click, with Google ads, and then there's Facebook ads. And so what would be, if you're talking to somebody, let's say I come up to you and say, hey, Dan, I'm interested in getting into, online marketing. What would be, where would you have them start and why?
Yeah. So the sort of framework I use to think about this is you have what resources you have available to you, and you have your inclination. And both of those things go together to figure out the strategy that makes the most sense for you, right? Resources are where people typically start. And when I say resources, the way I think about it is I say you've either got time or you've got money. If you're early in your investing career, you haven't done a bunch of deals, you don't really have much of a marketing budget, you have time, right? If you are slammed and doing a bunch of deals and you don't have a whole bunch of free time, then you're going to use money, right? And either of those are totally viable. Like, obviously, it's like I provide marketing services. It would be in my best interest to come on here and be like, it's impossible to do this yourself. But that's not true. You can absolutely make a significant dent in online marketing, even if you're starting without much of a background in it. And I know this for a fact because it happens all the time.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you teach, like you have your own like workshops and boot camps that you teach, right? Yeah. For people that don't want to necessarily retain your services, but they're still interested in learning. And, again, we brought Dan in, we just created a little bundle, out of his workshops that he did for us. So you can go to reiblackbook.com/nerds. And right now we got like a crazy deal on it because again, he's going to come in, spoiler alert. We talked before this, Dan said he's going to come in and update that training. And so basically anybody that purchases the existing bundle for, I think it's like $47. Like it's ridiculously cheap. I mean, people paid, $500 to $1,000 to attend these workshops. And the content's still great. I mean, the content is still, very, very, applicable to our current, to the current climate of the internet. There's just some things that have changed, and we're going to get into that in this interview. But you could go and Dan literally walks you through step by step. Like you can look over his shoulder as he's creating a Google ad, as he's like creating basically a Google ad account and a Google ad from scratch. And he goes through and shows you how to SEO your website from scratch. And so if you go to reiblackbook.com/nerds, you can check that out. And if anybody who buys that, we're automatically going to give them the updated courses for free, which are probably going to sell for $500 to $1,000.
That is awesome. That is super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both, selfishly, like we want people here at REI Black Book, like we want investors to succeed. Like we want people to drive clicks to websites, right? Because that's, if they don't have success, they're not going to continue using our tools. And the reason that Dan teaches these workshops is he realizes also that some people are just going to say, hey, this is great stuff. And I can see it's a huge benefit. Can you just do it for me? Right. And so, before we hopped on, I was thinking about some of our customers, REI Black Book users that have that use Dan to run their ads or that have attended the workshop and have seen great results. And I was talking with Andy Werner maybe a month or two when he was in town for one of our mastermind meetings.
Yeah.
And he's been using you guys, I think, since like April of last year, like right when COVID hit. His direct mail was really slowing down. Like he wasn't getting results. It was really tough for people to call because a lot of people were uncertain. And so, direct mail, while it is technically inbound, you're going out and you're interrupting people. You're sending mail into people's mailbox. Half of the people that pick up the phone call you and say, like,
I'm going to have you arrested.
F you. Yeah. My lawyer is going to call you and sue you. Right. So those are half the phone calls you get.
Yeah. And clearly violating you can't send me mail without my permission law.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I remember Andy Werner reached out and was right after we did an interview with you, like right when COVID hit. We were saying like, hey man, what are you seeing? Cause I remember ad costs went way down for a little bit. Right. Because everybody, like people pulled their ad budgets and people stopped running ads. And so what Andy did was he hired you guys to start running ads, and he started closing, I think his closing percentage, I'd have to go and ask him again, but it was like every, I think 13 leads, he was closing a deal or something like that. And then he was following up. And so he was able to, and the deals were way higher spreads, and he was having to talk to way less, these were the numbers. Sorry. I remember now. He was generating 13 leads a month, and for every 7 leads was closing a deal. And he has a whole team in place. So he was really like when somebody would opt into the website, he was calling them right away. If somebody wouldn't pick up the phone, they put them on an automated follow-up campaign inside of REI Blackbook, and their virtual assistants were also calling them. So they were on the leads. Like, that's one of the reasons why his conversion rate was so high. But another reason was because of the relationship that you have with these sellers when they're seeking you out. It's completely different than you sending them direct mail and them calling because they're pissed and you have to settle them down, and maybe you're able to actually book an appointment. This is somebody who physically goes to Google, not physically, I guess, virtually goes to Google, types in "sell my house." He's in Phoenix.
You gotta type it in.
Yeah, sell my house fast in Phoenix. They land on your website and they fill out the form. They're expecting you to call. If you don't, that's bad customer service, right? They're expecting the phone call, and they're also expecting to sell their house at a discount because they went to Google and searched for basically a home buyer who buys houses for cash, right? Yeah. So the dynamic between that you're having with these sellers is completely different. And, it's a shift a little bit in mindset. And there's a little bit of a learning curve, and that's why, we have the training that we do. And it's also why Dan's business exists, because he's very, very good at, running ads and also optimizing websites for search.
Yeah, I think there's definitely there's people who, so I would put myself in this bucket, right? So we run Facebook ads for our clients, right? I've got a Facebook ads team. It's awesome, right? I've done Facebook ads myself. I pay someone else to run my Facebook ads, right? For my agency, right? Just because I just can't. I don't have time, right? I can barely time to shoot most days, right?
Well, your business is not to run Facebook ads for your business. Your business is to run Facebook ads for your clients. Exactly. Right. And that's the same thing with investors.
Yeah. So you having that, for me, the amount of time that it saves and the amount of cognitive bandwidth that it saves is absolutely worth what I pay for, right? It's probably worth twice what I pay for. Now, but there are other things. So for example, the SEO on my own website, I do myself, right? I do my own SEO. And for that, it's not so much that, I couldn't benefit from paying someone, but I'm involved in it. It's important. It's more important to me. It's got more of my personality in it, right? So it's all about what kind of resources you want to put into it. I put my time into that, right?
Right.
Now, the other thing is you've got to think about your inclination. If you're trying to think how do I want to get into this? Your inclination is really, to me, it's about how fast are you looking to affect change, right? If you have more time available in terms of, for example, when you need to do your next deal, or you're saying, hey, I'm building this over the long haul. Search engine optimization is an incredible channel, because essentially, once you get to the point where you are generating leads, those leads are free, right? You're not paying per lead.
Yep.
And so if you think about a number one ranked website for a given search term showing up for a competitive search term in your market that's producing motivated sellers, that one keyword, that one position can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of a year, right? So if you think about, one of the core laws of the universe is there ain't no such thing as a free lunch, right? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's just moved from one place to another. So, for me, it's okay, you got to put in the time up front to do that, right? Or time or money or whatever. You got to put in some work to make it happen. But once it happens, the ROI is the highest of any marketing you will ever do, right? But you're putting in time. You got to wait, right? If your inclination is much more towards, I am willing to take a smaller margin on my deal because I'm going to pay to acquire that deal, but I'm going to start generating activity much more quickly, PPC is really typically where you end up, because you can set up a Google Ads account, start generating clicks today, right? It happens pretty quickly. You're not having to, you're not laboring without that kind of immediate feedback. But you're paying per lead, right? So you're not building an asset in the same way that you're building an asset when you rank a website, using SEO. So if you kind of combine those two things, you say, okay, do I have more time or do I have more money, right? Can I do this myself or do I need to hire someone? And then you combine your inclination, which is, am I looking for the shortest possible time frame to pay off, or am I looking for the highest possible ROI? ROI puts you in the SEO camp. Shortest time frame puts you in the PPC camp, right? Or you do a combination of all that. But I think if people think of it on that kind of like those 4 axes or whatever, then you can figure out what works for you. And there's the only other kind of principle I would give people is that by far, no matter what channel you use, what will make you the most money long-term is consistency. So I don't care if you can only check in on this stuff once a week, once a month, I don't care. I think both of those are great as long as you can do them consistently. It's like dipping in for a week and then burning yourself out and then never touching it again. That's what incurs the cost without ever getting the benefit. So figure out what really makes sense for you, what you can really commit to, really make a consistent part of your business. I will tell you, it is so rare to have people really commit in that way. And the sort of cumulative returns on that activity, on that investment are just massive. So I always say, wherever you're at on that spectrum, you can absolutely make this work, right? You can do it. Maybe you got to hire someone, maybe you don't. Maybe you do it yourself, maybe you don't. Maybe it's PPC, maybe it's SEO. There is a way to make this work for you in a way that's going to be healthy long-term for your business. So that's usually how I'll try to give people some comfort there. You don't got to be, you got to have the wraparound, like hacker shades that they have in Mission Impossible or whatever. And you don't have to be someone who you're not. You can make it work in a way that fits your business and your personality. Does that make sense?
Hey, I just wanted to take a second to tell you about a special deal that we have. So if you're digging this interview with Dan actually came in and shot 2 workshops specifically for real estate investors where he shows you exactly how to do what he's talking about. He shows you how to generate motivated sellers online through pay-per-click and through SEO. And we actually sold these workshops. People came in live and we sold them for about $500 to $1,000. But Dan agreed to let us bundle them together, and we have a special deal for you. If you go to reiblackbook.com/nerds, or you can click the button below this video, you can actually get access to that entire online bundle for just $47. So you can learn all about it if you click the button below, or you go to reiblackbook.com/nerds. You can learn to do exactly what Dan is talking about for just $47. And if you're not an REI Blackbook user already, we're also going to throw in a 30-day trial to REI Blackbook so you can actually use the systems to start generating leads and following up with your leads. So be sure to check it out. Go to reiblackbook.com/nerds. With that, let's get back to the interview.
I've heard, I don't remember if it was you or if it was somebody else, but referred to SEO as if we're picturing, we're farming, right? And we need to water our crops. SEO is like rain, and pay-per-click is like, a hose that you can, point at your crops and water on demand, but you have to pay for that water, right? You have to pay the city or the county or whatever. You have to pay for that water.
That. That's not mine, but I like that.
You can take it and you can make it your own. But right. So, and you can't really count on the rain. Over the course of 6 months, it's going to rain, right? Or the course of a month, it's going to rain, but you don't necessarily know when. Yeah. But if you pay Google, $100 a day, that you're going to get, your website's going to be viewed, or your ad's at least going to be viewed, and it may get clicked a few times a day. Right. And so it's the same with Facebook, so if you think, hey, it might take 3, 6, 9 months for me to get traction on SEO, which is, not out of the question. Right. I'm sure
all that stuff for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great long-term strategy, but you can also use pay-per-click, whether it be from Google or Facebook, to start generating leads today. And I think another thing to think about as well is, people talk about, and this is market to market as far as what people are paying a click. Like what you pay in St. Louis per click is going to be different than what you pay in Houston. But let's say you're paying, I don't know what, $30 a click. Does that sound reasonable, Dan, depending on what market you're in? I mean, some markets are probably $80 to $100 a click.
Yeah, I was going to say so the national average cost per click used to be anywhere between $12 and $25, right? For like a very well targeted, very specific, motivated seller keyword, right? Cheaper markets would be around 12, higher markets would be around 25. I was going to say 2020 was the first time I ever had a conversation with someone where their cost per click was $75. And I was like, that's high. That's real high,
Yeah.
per click, not per lead. But
Right.
I would say over the last 3 or 4 months or so, we've seen a lot of stabilization there. So I would probably put the national average somewhere between $20 and $30 now, depending on market size. And also, we don't have to get too deep in the weeds. That assumes a certain targeting methodology. There are different ways to skin the cat so that you can bring that cost down. And so it all varies. But yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, I would say is very reasonable.
Nice. Yeah. And so, Dan's talking about targeting and all of that. And, he teaches that in all of these different workshops and courses. I think we have a link to, maybe his keywords that he uses from that workshop. And if so, I'll make sure that we link to that in the show notes below this video here. If you're watching this on the blog, if you're on YouTube, there'll be a link in the description. But that's basically in Google, that's how you quote unquote target. It's by certain keywords, right? So what are they searching? If they're searching, I need to sell, that's super broad. That might be, I need to sell my shoes. I need to sell my bike. I need to sell, whatever. But if someone's searching, I think probably one of the, at least when you did this in 2019, one of the highest keywords that you were using was sell my house fast, I think, and then your city.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be very competitive.
Yeah. It's funny because real estate investing is a profoundly weird industry. Like if you work in real estate investing for a long time, like we both have, you lose sight of the fact that most people still don't even know what it is, right? It's it's still weird. And it's also weird in the sense that investors will come to me and they'll say give me the secret keyword list, and I'll be like, yeah, it's still sell my house. It's
right.
But what, because no one's invented a new way of saying sell my house, right? It's it's not like you're going to come up with some weird, because if it's weird, not a lot of people are going to search for it almost by definition, right?
Yep.
So it becomes, I think over time. So early in this industry, it was very much all about keyword selection. And it still is to an extent, but I would say that when it's less about give me the weird keyword that, it's I always say sell my horse is going to be the breakout keyword of 2022 or something.
A bunch of typos.
Yeah, exactly. And you will see there's some of the ones that we see are so funny. One of my favorites is, can you sell a house with your wife still in it? I think was one of my favorite ones. And I was like, this guy needs different types of help, but it's less about, let me find the really weird keyword. It's more about, in my market, what are my competitors bidding on? In my market, how do all those keywords behave and perform? And based on those two things and my personal risk tolerance, which of these keywords is the best buy for me right now? I think of keywords as stocks in a market, because that's what it is. Google Ads is an auction. There are people bidding on every single one of these keywords every time someone searches for them, live, real time, right? And so you're entering, you imagine entering the old stock market floor with all the people with the pieces of paper buy, sell. That's what I picture when I think about Google Ads, except that every single city you go to has its own stock market floor where the prices for, Apple stock might be $40 in New York, but $20 in Houston and $10 in California or whatever, right? And so for you in this moment in your market, with your competitors, your prices will be different. Your return on investment for a click from any given one of those keywords will be different. And so I think we're moving to an industry that's going to be really about, it's not about Give me the roadmap that works for every investor every time.
Yep.
Because that doesn't exist, right? What we are is, how do I understand what's really going to work for me personally in this moment, not last year, not for my competitor down the street, for me with my budget, my close rate, my profit margins, all that stuff. And I think increasingly, like if you look behind the scenes at AdWords Nerds, what you will see is us investing a lot of money and time on how do we understand our individual clients better? How do I understand your close rate better? How do I understand your margin on every single deal better? How do I understand what your competitors are doing better? Not so much like what's the list of keywords, but what is working right now for this individual investor. And it's an exciting time. It really is. Like if you are listening to this and you're not into online marketing now, it is not too late. This is actually like a really good time because it's one of the times where everybody's looking around trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And whatever happens, it's going to be happening online. So if you can show up and be open-minded and be open to learning different mental models of how all this stuff works and be open to the fact that your market is changing, our industry is changing, how investors relate to sellers is changing. The people who show up and are open to that process, they're going to evolve and adapt and they're going to thrive.
Yep.
And it's the people who refuse to do anything without the checklist that's been vetted 9 million times. It's those people that are going to lag behind. Right.
Yeah. And to your point, like if there's a checklist, it's too late, right? The checklists are great for, and even the course, I mean, the course we were talking about, we're going to say, this is your step-by-step roadmap to get started with Google Ads, which is true. This is how you get started with Google Ads. This is how you start generating leads. This is how you start talking to sellers. This is how you start closing deals with Google Ads. But that's just how to start. Like there's no way Dan or anybody could create a course to say, how can Josh buys houses in St. Louis, Missouri, optimize his campaign for his business? Like that's so specific. The only way to do that is you take the proven model, the framework, the blueprint, the roadmap, whatever you want to call it. You take the proven model that works well, you install it in your business, you take action, and then you iterate based on those results. And you're going to start getting clicks to your website. If your website's, if you're an REI Black Book customer, and you're using our seller template, like that website template is built with one thing in mind. It's to build authority, credibility, and convert leads into deals. And so if you're using our website template, and you drive Google, if you drive traffic from Google to that website, you're going to start generating leads. Right. Yeah. There's things you could probably do to influence that positively or negatively. Like maybe you could add a video of yourself and that helps build credibility. But if you just start with the proven framework, you're going to see success. There's always ways to make it better, specific to your market, specific to your business. But, follow what works and then iterate from there. We always say here at REI Black Book, implement, then iterate.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to show up. It's interesting. You got to show up with the best possible practice, but also with the understanding that, it's like the Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Yep. It's like the universe is a great face punching machine. For me, it's just like everyone else, right? And so we were talking about this, like when I teach this course right now, I just did a new version of it. And I just went through all that stuff. And I based what's in this course off. I was working one-on-one with a group of anywhere between like 10 and 20 investors on their marketing, just one-on-one, me and them, every single week, right? And it was all based off, what did I learn in that year? In 2020, again, I don't know if you paid attention during 2020, it was sort of a wild year. It was for me, right? It was a wild year. So it's like, what did I learn during that year? And the thing that I learned, right, is the single most valuable thing I can teach is not, here's the tactic, push the button this way. It is, here is how to come up with your own tactics that work. And so when I teach it now, when I teach, for example, management of a PPC campaign, I'm like, here's how you set it up. Here's the campaign template. Here's all the keywords. Here's the ads, blah, 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 blah. And then I say, the minute you turn that on is the minute where it's going to start deviating from what I told you to expect.
Yep.
Right? Like if I said, again, national average cost per click, anywhere between $20 and $30. Well, that client that I talked to at a $75 cost per click. It's not because the average number that I gave him was wrong. It's because averages are averages, right? Yeah. Most people don't have 1.5 kids, even though that might be the average number of kids per family, right? So so for example, PPC management, I teach a thing called the theory of constraints. Theory of constraints says in any system, there's only ever one thing you should be working on. So how do you figure out what the one thing is? And then once you figure it out, what do you do about it? And I spend a lot of time teaching that exact process. Here are the 6 steps in the system. Here's exactly how you diagnose what the problem is. Here's the list of specific interventions you make once you find that problem. Because the universe of potential issues is limited, but the ways in which those issues emerge is infinite. And so if you learn how to think, that is ultimately the only advantage that lasts. Right? If I give you a landing page that's my best testing landing page, right? It's absolutely crushing all my competition. It is not long before every other investor in your market will have that page.
Yep.
Right. And then the advantage goes away. But if you know how to make your own pages, that advantage never goes away.
Yeah, that's a perfect example that I love because, what I just said is if you use our template, then you're going to be able to convert leads into deals. But guess what? Everybody can install that template. And the only real difference, if you don't do anything with it, is a logo. But the thing is, like, you're still going to generate leads. Like, that is where what Dan's saying is, like, if you implement the best practices and you show up with the best practices, like, you're still going to find success. Yeah. But you could, with the same ad spend, you could double your business by, having a better page, maybe writing a better ad, having better follow-up, calling them back faster. There's all these different elements that come into place because the ad's just one component of the actual campaign or the deal itself. Like, that's just trying to get somebody to go from, I have no idea who ABC Homebuyers is, to now I'm on their website and I trust them because I just watched a video from the owner. And when I opted in, they called me within 5 minutes. Like, that's a complete different experience than somebody who lands, and the websites could look exactly the same, right? Yeah. Maybe one just has a video, one doesn't. And one of the companies calls the person back in 5 minutes and the other one waits a day. Right.
The callback is so huge, but you just made this point and it really solidified it for me in my head, right? It's not that taking the landing page won't work. It will absolutely work. That's why you guys are putting it out, because it converts really well, right? It's proven, right? Best practice. Great. That's where you start. It's about your expectation, because you have to have the expectation that all success has a ticking clock on it. Mm-hmm. All success has a ticking clock, because for one, if it is truly successful and gives you a huge advantage, everyone else is going to learn about it and they're going to copy it. Right.
Yeah. That's why cold texting, by the way, is going to be illegal soon, because it worked like crazy. But the problem is that's a tactic, right? That's a tactic, and tactics have, expiration dates on them typically. Many people say marketers ruin everything. And it's true, because when somebody figures out it works, it's like, we're going to pour gasoline on this thing till it completely burns down.
It'll burn the entire neighborhood down. Yeah. That's basically it. I mean, it's, you can get into one of my hobbies is learning about game theory. I'm always fascinated by game theory, and it's a common game theory pattern, right? If you have this escalating competition, the competition just burns itself out, right? Because everyone kind of overuses the resource or whatever. Even even something internal. It's funny. I was just thinking about this, even weight. So when the pandemic started, look, I'll be vulnerable with the audience. I'm going to open up a little bit. I'm an emotional eater. I eat my feelings. And so when the pandemic started, in my head was I need to eat a lot of food. And my wife in her head was I need to make sourdough every day. And I was these two things together are not good. I could see the trend line, right? So I was like, I'm going to like work on my diet during the pandemic. And I did. And I lost some weight. I lost like 10 pounds, right? I'm like, I look great. This morning, I was like, I look great this morning. I'm very happy with myself. And then I got to work today and in my head, I can hear a voice say, you know what? Like, you look really good. You could definitely get Chipotle and ice cream for lunch at the yeah. And it's going to be totally fine because you look great now, right? And it's like, I'm like, what that is the ticking clock on my success. That's what it is. Right. So you have to have the expectation that like any success that you gain, it's got to be defended and it's got to be built on. You got to keep building on it. Right. It's not that template isn't the stopping point. It's the starting point for you. And it just happens to be an incredible resource. It's going to cut your learning curve. Like that's an incredible place to start. It's still just where you start. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. And I think another benefit, a way to protect against that, ticking clock is, one of the things I love about online marketing is a byproduct of it is you're building brand. And not enough people talk about this in real estate because real estate is such a direct marketing business. It's like, I'm going to put out, 1,000 postcards and I'm going to track how many phone calls I get back. And I don't even need to put my logo on it because I only need to close 1 or 2 deals and I'll make, 20, 30, 40 grand, which I get that 100%. But the problem is now you're on this hamster wheel and you have to do that every single month or you don't close a deal. And so there's no reason why you shouldn't be building your brand in the process. It's kind of like SEO. Like SEO is not going to make you rich tomorrow, but 2 years from now, it could if you do it well. Right? Building a brand is not going to make you rich tomorrow, but in 2 to 3 years, if first of all, everybody that you've worked with, like all of the customers that you worked with are singing your praises because you have such a good business, you've built a brand, you have a great customer experience. When somebody calls, you answer or somebody on your team answers, they're going to go tell people about you. That's brand. When somebody gets your postcard and they search for your company and your website shows up and the website looks nice, it's easy to navigate, there's testimonials on there, there's a video, like that's your brand. That's like how people feel about your company. Like most real estate investors do not pay attention to that. Most real estate investors' websites look like garbage. Do ugly websites work? They do. But like, why not just use a nice looking one with the same copy and it'll work even better, right? And so, one of the byproducts of, let's say, running retargeting ads on Facebook is, yes, you might get more people to come back. Like if people are going to your website from SEO and from pay-per-click, it would be silly not to spend $10 a day to run some simple either video ads or just a static image ad on Facebook to just create that awareness. It's like, this is like the equivalent of like, a bus stop ad or a bench ad next to a bus stop or whatever. People or a billboard or something like that. This is the virtual equivalent of that, except it's only shown to people that went to your website.
Yeah.
So you're just, this is another form of follow-up, except you don't have to pick up the phone and call them.
Way of thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
And the point about branding is so critical. We started this conversation talking about all the transitions that are happening and changes that are happening in the landscape, right? And I think one of the most profound ones, which is one of the ones that is the hardest to notice because it is the slowest of all of them, is the transition of real estate investing from a direct response business to a branding-based business.
Yep.
Right? When you look at, this is true across pretty much every industry you're ever going to look at, but people in general, in any industry, they look at what's working now. They very rarely learn their path. They learn their history. They don't study their history, right? If you go into the history of real estate investing, there's not that much. It's a relatively new sort of industry in the sense that we conceive of it today. And if you go all the way back to pull someone like Carlton Sheets, right? This is sort of the innovators in that space, selling tapes, teaching people how to do this stuff. It is basically, it is what Eugene Schwartz, who wrote Breakthrough Advertising, would have called an awareness-based industry. How do I sell you on what I do as a real estate investor? Well, what I have to do is just show up and explain what a real estate investor does. Okay, Mr. Seller, you need to sell your house. I'm a real estate investor. I will buy your house for cash. I will handle all the paperwork. You won't have to repair it. That's the pitch. And if you look at the postcards and the yellow letters and most of the marketing that investors do today, it is still just, here is what I do. I am a real estate investor. Here's what I do. I'm aiming to make you aware of me, right? Awareness-based industry. But slowly but surely over time, real estate investing, as it has become far more competitive, and not just competitive among local investors, but also Trulia, Zillow, Open Door, Knock, OfferPad, all these big brands that, by the way, people already know, already have positive interactions with, and already like. With so much competition coming into the market, it is no longer an industry that is dominated by this idea of, I just need to make you aware of me. Now, the question you need to answer is not, why do I sell to a real estate investor? It's, why do I sell to you instead of someone else? That's the question. And that is a profoundly different business model, right? If all I need to do is hit you in the moment where you are most motivated and say, you want to sell? I'll buy. That's one business model.
And that's the hardest type of lead to get.
And it's hard, right?
Yeah.
If I need to get you before you need to sell because you need to like me and have a relationship with me before that moment, that is a very different way of marketing. It's a very different way of running the business. It's a very different way of thinking about what your cost per deal acquisition is. And this is true in my business as well. Someone asked me the other day, they said, where do most of your clients come from? Right? So for AdWords nerds, working with real estate investors, how do we get clients? And I said, well, it used to be Facebook ads. I would spend $10,000 a month on Facebook ads. But for one reason or another, for the last 2 years, I feel like Facebook ads has successfully run 10% of the time. It's like everything's always exploding in Facebook ads for us. I don't know if it's just me and I'm cursed or whatever. So Facebook ads hasn't been running particularly great, and the company's done really well. And so clearly not Facebook ads is my biggest source of clients. And I said, when you back up, it's really hard to tell. But ultimately what I think it is we're just top of mind. I have been doing this for so long and doing podcasts like this or videos like this, doing educational materials and getting up on stage and putting out blog posts and just showing up consistently. That at this point, people just kind of know who we are.
Yep.
And so when you need someone that does what we do, you think of us. It doesn't mean you always work with us. And clearly that's not the case. We've got a bunch of competition. There's a bunch of really smart people in the industry, but people just they think of my handsome face, right? And that's worth its weight in gold to me.
Yep.
Right. So if you are not thinking about your real estate investing business in this way, as transitioning from pure awareness, you can still do that, but also needing to start building these relationships with the brand over time. I'm telling you, you are going to get your lunch eaten by someone else. So the more we can think about this and reorient our industry, because I need real estate investors to be successful to be in business, right? Yeah. So if we want to reorient this industry around that, that's where people have to focus. And going online to do that is an incredibly cost-effective way to do it and incredibly effective because your sellers are online. They are online already. That's where they hang out. So that's where you got to go.
Yeah, and more of your competition is going to be coming online, which is just the reality of it. And that shouldn't scare you from getting online. That should encourage you because if you're not, your competitors are.
Look, if these yokels can do it, you can do it, right? That jerk down the street can do it. You can absolutely do it. And the thing I love about online that's I think completely unique to online marketing is you can really just show up and be yourself. Honestly, I'm if you love real estate investing and you also love pig farming and that's your thing, I guarantee just throw some pig farming content in there. People will love it. People love it. People want to know who you are. They want to do business with real people. So you don't have to be like the world's most polished person. You don't have to be invest in a huge thing. You just get out there and be real and help people. And you will see the rewards of that. And that's really never been true in human history, right? It never has. It's just such a fun time to be doing business. I want people to get out there and really go after it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is one of the best times to really start investing in online advertising and in building your online, just your presence online. Right. And it starts with, a website. And then the next question is, how do I drive traffic to that website? And that's kind of what we talked about today. We're also going to bring Dan on to go. This is a little bit more of a high level interview, but we're going to bring Dan on, over the course of the next couple months to get a little bit more tactical, to teach you, the nuts and bolts of, a Google Ads campaign, or what you need to do to really get your website ranking for organic search, or how he thinks about, there's a bunch of changes that have already come and that are going to continue to come in the online space. The most recent one was the update from, whatever it was iOS 14.5 or 15 or whatever it was. That's really changing the way that, tracking online is working. There's a lot of changes coming. And so, we want to bring Dan on to keep us up to speed on that. So Dan, as always, man, I really appreciate your time today. Really appreciate you coming on. I think you got a ton of great insights, and we're gonna be leaning on you here in the next few months as things change. But anytime things change, I think it's more of an opportunity than anything. Lots of people get scared, and which means lots of people pull out. When Facebook ads made their big update a couple of years ago, where you had to use a special ads category, everybody freaked out because they used to run these zip code hyper local ads, which were great. Those were awesome, and they worked crazy well. But the reality is, everybody has to play by the same rules. Like, you can't game Facebook, at least not for any amount of time. And so instead of freaking out and pulling out, you need to follow people like Dan to learn what's going on, or hire people like Dan to learn what's going on. They can either do it for you, or they can teach you how to do it. So you can stay ahead of the curve, because most people are going to get freaked out. They're going to get scared. They're going to say, Google pay-per-click, ad costs are rising. Facebook ads costs are rising, or Facebook doesn't let us do these zip code, ads anymore. Right. But there are still ways to make the platform work, because guess what? That's Facebook's business model, right? They're actually trying to make it easier for you to run ads, not harder, believe it or not, because the more people that run ads, the more money they make. Right. Yeah. And so, again, Dan, I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm going to link to a couple different resources below this video, but if anybody wants to get in contact with you, follow you, hire you, where should they go?
Yeah, they can go over to AdWordsNerds.com. So ADWORDS nerds.com. And be happy to talk with anybody that wants to talk strategy. We've also got a bunch of free stuff. All that.
A podcast as well, right?
And a podcast. Yeah, REI Marketing Nerds podcast. There's so much stuff. So you can just go to the website, check it out, see whatever you like. And I will always say, one of the reasons I love to talk to you and work with the REI Black Book folks is when someone comes to work with me and they've got REI Black Book on the back end of their real estate investing business, I know they have the means to effectively follow up, effectively close. So if you are listening to this and you are an REI Black Book customer, you have these incredible tools. And it's just such a cool way to run that part of your business. So definitely, I would love to talk to anybody from REI Black Book, any of your clients or whatever. But just in general, if you're a real estate investor, you got any questions about online marketing, you want to get into it, you don't know where to start, come to the website, hit us up. We're super friendly. And I just love talking about this stuff. So thanks again for having me on, man. This was a blast, and I hope we get to do it again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. We'll see you on the next one.
All right, so that concludes the interview with Dan Barrett. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I always enjoy speaking with Dan because he's really got his finger on the pulse, and him and his team know what's working for real estate investors to generate motivated sellers online. If you want to continue to learn from Dan, as I said before, we've got a special deal. You can go to reiblackbook.com/nerds. You'll get access to 2 of the workshops that he shot specifically for REI Black Book for just $47. If you want to reach out to Dan, you can find him at adwordsnerds.com. If you'd rather just pay him to run your ads for you, just check Dan out at adwordnerds.com. If you have any questions about the interview, just be sure to comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please forward it to one of your friends or colleagues in the real estate investing space. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified every time we publish new videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.